calling in from Bali right now. So yeah, I guess this book it came to me at a point. I actually heard Akshay. I don't think I told you what podcast I heard you on. I heard you originally on the Warrior Soul podcast, which is like a veteran style podcast. It was the first time I heard him, and you're just super relatable when I heard everything you were talking about then. So I picked up the book, which is kind of rare because I listen to so many podcasts and never follow up on the book. And then like immediately started reading it. I was just taking the lessons and literally applying them to my life, and literally help my wife work through something that she was struggling with then, and felt the need to reach out and just like let you know how like this practical application stuff is super crucial. There's too many books out there where people just give you theory and then nobody knows what to do with it. So yeah, I think that's where I'll kind of leave it. Thanks for being here again, Akshay. Why don't I just turn it over to you and you can say whatever you want.
Sure. Thank you all so much. I am deeply honored to be here. It always just warms my heart to know when the book is out there. It's making a difference in people's lives. Y'all have read it. Y'all know how much research went into it. So I thought, since most of y'all have read the book, what I can do is I'll share a little bit about Fearvana, the concept at a meta level, which translates a lot to some of my own evolution since writing the book. So kind of like what has happened in my journey since writing, because it's now been about 3 years, and it directly translates to Fearvana. It kind of looks at Fearvana at a meta level, and also kind of addresses some of the things y'all wanted to go into in terms of like my running marathons, and I think it will kind of, yeah, I'll leave it at that, and then we can kind of take the conversation from there, and happy to answer any questions that may come up from there. So Fearvana is, as we all know, right? Fear and nirvana, two seemingly contradictory ideas that are in fact complementary. And if you look at Fearvana at a meta level, eventually this will perhaps be my next book, is a concept that I now call the paradox of singular duality. So the idea of this is that in life, there are all these dualities, right? There's darkness, light, ego, humility, contentment, discontentment, stress, recovery, fear, nirvana, death, life, suffering, play. There's these series of dualities. And since writing Fearvana, I didn't actually process this in this way when I wrote the book, and only through my own continued evolution and seeking after the book did I kind of delve deeper, and now I actually have this running list of dualities. As I think about life, like a new duality will pop up, and I write this down, and I have this like huge list of dualities. And the idea is, in life, the current paradigm which we most view all these dualities, we demonize one side. So the ethos of Fearvana obviously focuses on fear, stress, and anxiety, right? Those are the sort of neurologically the same emotions, and how we demonize them. But if you look at it on a meta level, we demonize almost on every sort of duality, we demonize one side, right? Like ego is the enemy, that we say ego is bad. We say discontentment is bad. We should be content all the time. Stress obviously is bad, but none of these things are inherently bad, right? It's balancing both edges of the duality that we actually find the next spiritual awakening. So a little bit about my journey since writing Fearvana. I'll share kind of the highs and lows and why this translates to the duality concept and how I currently apply it in my life consistently, and also kind of share what my biggest struggle is right now. And then I guess we'll take it from there. So since writing Fearvana, one of probably the more challenging things I went through, I think this was the year after that, I went through a very challenging divorce. Y'all have read my book, so y'all know I was like deeply in love with my wife. I won't go deep into it, but she got caught up in this very cult-like organization, and we ended up splitting. She ended up deciding to move into a meditation ashram from this false guru type dude. And I ended up breaking my sobriety. And so I did not like that about myself. And when I broke my sobriety, I broke hard. I do everything to a pretty extreme level. So I broke pretty hard. And as a result, one of the things I did to then tap deeper into myself and find some great answers was I went and spent 7 days in a darkness retreat. So it was 7 days in pitch darkness, silence, and isolation, 24/7 in darkness, to confront my own fear of stillness. This was a fear that I think I talked about in Fearvana. I can't remember now. It's been a while, but I might have touched on it at the end of Fearvana as a fear that I had avoided confronting, because even sometimes the positive things we're doing, like working or working out or running, can often be just a way to run away from ourselves. So I went and spent 7 days in darkness, and probably like one of the most profound and visceral understandings of these kind of two extremes of a duality coexisting was in the darkness retreat. When 5 days into the darkness retreat, I saw the brightest white light I've ever seen in my entire life. like blinding white light. I literally was touching my eyelids like this because I couldn't tell if they were open or closed anymore. And I felt like I needed an eye mask to sleep. And it was surreal. It was absolutely profound and absolutely surreal. And even coming out of the darkness, I remember feeling this deep sense of gratitude because the way I looked at the world after spending 7 days in pitch darkness, there's no real words to describe what the world looked like in those few moments when you first come back into the light. And I felt this deep sense of gratitude for every bit of pain I've ever experienced in my life, because I knew then and there, you cannot truly understand the light unless you have been in the dark. And I kind of knew that from everything y'all ever read in Fearvana. You all know my story before that led to Fearvana. But in that case, it was a very visceral understanding of it. So since writing Fearvana, I've spent the 7 days in darkness retreats and touching about the running across the world. And I went and spent 1 week running across Liberia. It was about a marathon a day for 7 days to help build the first sustainable school out there. We also distributed water filters across the country while doing the run. I ended up partnering with a group of former child soldiers out there through my foundation. As I think you all know, all the profits from my book go to charity. So we've supported this group of former child soldiers in West Africa. And it was a very profound experience, running 7 days across the country that's been through a brutal civil war, been through the Ebola virus, extreme poverty. So the people you engage with are pretty intense extremes of the human condition. And what that inspired me in terms of the run across the world, because I know a couple of y'all touched on that, and I know I talk about in the book, is to no longer focus on doing every country, but focus on countries where a run can have greater impact than myself. Like, I could go run across Switzerland. It would be gorgeous and stunning, and I would love it, I'm sure. But is it going to do anything beyond me on the ground, right? So really kind of now focusing on that. So I did have a plan to do India, to do Uganda. A lot of plans have shifted, as we all know what's currently happening. But eventually it'll all happen. I'll be back on the ground. But focusing on countries where I can use running as a vehicle to do sort of humanitarian work on the ground. Because beyond just being a fundraising tool and telling these stories, I mean, my own spiritual experiences were very profound. As a quick example, I got so close to my cameraman out there while he was filming the run. After the run, he had a 5-year-old son who had a hole in his heart. After the run, me and my family sponsored him, his wife, and his kid to come stay with my family in India. And they stayed with us for 1 month, and his son had the life-saving heart surgery. And he's now back in Liberia playing soccer and living a full life. And to me, it was like one of the most profound experiences of human connection. Like, what are the odds that some jackass decides to go run across a country and meets this guy who just happened to quit his job to focus on photography, which is hard to do anywhere, as many of us know. But to do in a country like Liberia, to quit a secure job, is like, it takes a hell of a lot of courage to do it there, and then focus on photography. And we met and came together, and now, like, he's family, right? Like, he had this surgery. And so that was a very profound example, but that kind of shifted the goals a little bit, and I think in a better way, and ultimately a more meaningful way, and a better use of my time. And since then, now what I'm doing is building the Fearvana empire, which I can't remember if I would talk about that in the book, but I won't go deep into that right now. I'm happy to answer questions if y'all have. But where I'm now kind of exploring, and this touches on some of the concepts y'all talked about in terms of going to war with ourselves. So is really exploring the edges of these dualities further and further and further, because I have come to realize that currently at my edge is that I am subconsciously attracting greater suffering in my life than there needs to be. So while I, without a doubt, value engaging suffering, 2 weekends ago, I did my first 24-hour run. When the quarantine started, I did a 50-miler around a cul-de-sac, which was just pure suffering, not just physical, but psychological, because you're going 1,000 laps around this damn loop over and over again. So I have no doubt will constantly be someone seeking those edges. But like every duality, you got to play on the other edge as well. So, like, for example, I now have come to a point in my life now that I literally demonize words like easy and fun. Like, I saw this sign that said 10K fun run, and I was like, psh, you don't run for fun. That's bullshit. Like, if you're not suffering, you're fucking wrong, you know? Now, obviously, I'm not saying that's right, but that's where my paradigms had created, was that I went too far into the edge. And as a result, it was leading me into darker places than I needed to be all the time, really. And so now kind of dancing on the other edge of that duality is where I'm playing in my own life, of exploring sort of the lighter side of things, falling in love with the experience of ease, of flow, of fun, running for fun, as crazy as that may be, you know, and just embracing that side. And I believe now that this concept is everything. Like, pushing on the edges of every duality is where you find the next awakening. So I do believe that like my fundamental philosophy, I actually think everybody should have a crystal clear like philosophy statement. My philosophy is that the path to inner peace is the pursuit of a worthy inner war. And we're having an inner war whether we like it or not. The key is exercising that awareness on, is this really the worthy inner war that we need to be fighting? And then seeking accordingly, you know, because otherwise we can be unconsciously attracting things and seeking out things where we just don't need it. Like one of the things I'm realizing in terms of suffering in my own life. So that's kind of where I'm at now. Some of the adventures that I've been on since writing Fearvana. Again, happy to share more about the business side if that would be of interest. But I thought the concept of the duality has been kind of my biggest awakening. Like I said, eventually there'll probably be another book. And everybody, like anybody I've worked with now, I always see this apply in some context or another. Like if you can pull up a huge list of dualities and somewhere they will be struggling with one edge. Like as a quick example, again, I was working with this one woman who was, she had been adopted. So she was struggling with belonging. So we were exploring the duality of like belonging and solitude, right? Kind of playing on these different edges of dualities and finding and like dancing on the other edge of it to see what shows up. Because otherwise we're only staying in what we know. And the whole essence, again, of Fearvana is to venture beyond what we know. And sometimes we don't know what we don't know, right? So we have to shatter entire paradigms in order to venture into new contexts, new frames. And we do that by venturing so far beyond what we know that we enter into new paradigms. And that's why I love like this, something like this, people coming together to explore things that are so beyond what we even know, right? And we all learn what we don't know, and then we can kind of delve deeper into that. So yeah, hopefully that was, I'll kind of leave it at that, and then we can answer any questions, take the conversation forward from there.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I think that was an underlying thing that I kind of got from the book that you were getting at, as well as that concept of duality. And it's something that I find myself saying to people who are very comfortable, that they need to experience a little bit more adversity and maybe enjoy themselves a little bit more, because they're wavering in that middle zone. All right. Does anybody want to kick this off? Like, because I'll talk all day. So if somebody else just wants to pop in and follow up, just yeah, go ahead, Max.
Gotta unmute myself there. Yeah, I like that concept of I feel like you actually do touch on that concept of the duality in the book, maybe, you know, subconsciously a little bit. But I like the idea that when you're even talking about the running, you were like, you know, this is my goal, but maybe I won't do it, and that's okay with me. The reason that I really, really enjoyed the book, though, is that it's this idea of, you know, turning fear into something that's kind of a motivating force. This past month, last Saturday, I woke up, I was just sitting on the couch, and I woke up, and all of a sudden there were 7 paramedics in my face, and just like, what the fuck is going on? I had like a split-second memory of that, and then a split-second memory of being in the ambulance, and then finally really coming to in the hospital. And I had a pretty intense seizure. I've never had a seizure before, never experienced that. Everything got calmed down in the seizure point of view, like that was fine. Did the CAT scan, like there's nothing immediately wrong with me there, but then got home from the hospital, and it's like, man, my back is just killing me from that seizure. Like and they were like, yeah, that's pretty common. Your muscles get really tight. And I spent kind of 4 days thinking, okay, I'm excited for the muscles to, you know, get loosened up a little bit. And about 7 days later, I was just like, it's still, I can barely walk still. It still hurts so badly. And obviously this whole experience creates a lot of fear of pretty much everything that you do. And I think I waited so long just because of, I don't want to go back to the hospital. Like hospital, bad things happened last time I was there. But sure enough, had to go back into the hospital, and it turns out that I fractured my spine in 7 different places right now. So did not gain a bunch of weight since the last time. This is actually like a big brace that I have going on over here. But it was just so powerful, such a powerful experience to be reading the book while going through this experience. I liked the book beforehand. It was a great book, and I was really interested in it. But then just the idea of, hey, you know, it's okay to be scared of what you're going through. Like, use that as a goal. Use that to frame where you want to go and frame what you want to do. it was a remarkably powerful book to be reading while going through this and continuing to go through this whole experience, because I still have obviously lots of doctor's appointments and lots of follow-up to go through. So just wanted to say that I really appreciate it from a very, very deep level.
Yeah, I'm glad you're okay, man. That is a lot to go through, and I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad this was helpful during that time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have thoughts like I mentioned. I haven't finished the book yet. I'm only halfway through, but there's a couple of things that right at the beginning that when you're talking about second dart syndrome, I feel like I've been engaging with that idea for a long time, even before having read the book. The idea that your memories are being constantly rewritten, and every time you remember a memory, the state of mind that you're in when you're thinking about that memory is going to change the way that memory gets re-imprinted when you go through it. So I'm looking forward to going through and finding the studies around that too, because it's something that I've engaged with my journey through MS and journey through other, like just through other challenges I've had through my life. But it's that second dart syndrome, the fact that you can actually injure yourself. Kind of somebody who goes through a psychedelic experience or something like that. It's all about mindset, intentional mindset. You put yourself in the correct mindset to have that experience, and it'll be a good experience, or at least not a bad experience. But if you're in a bad place, if you're in the wrong mindset, and you do the same thing, it's going to injure you in a way that you're going to need to recover from as well. So that second dart syndrome I'm just looking forward to getting through the book to find out more and more and more. So
awesome. And you know, one key thing about the second dart, because I was just having this conversation with a student of mine in my program, is that it's really important to like not get too caught up in what is the first and what is the second dart. Like I talk about in the book, right, that we don't control most of what happens in our brain. So for example, if I'm sitting in the room, somebody comes in with a gun right now, so there's the stimulus, which is somebody coming into the room with a gun, which I don't control, obviously. And then there's the stimulus of fear, which I don't control. And so like the first dart is, I talk about in the context of even the emotion. So there's the external first dart and there's the sort of the internal first dart, right? And not getting as caught up as in like, what is the first dart within ourselves, but to just notice that there is a second dart response to that first. So I might not control the fear showing up, but I can control what I do with it in this space. So why I was bringing up with him is he was going into the self-dialogue, right? That second dart syndrome is that downward spiral of our beating ourselves up, talking, why am I feeling fear, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of that can feel very automated as well, right? It can feel like it's just part of it, it's beyond our control, but simply by pausing to notice that there are second darts, we can now notice, accept, and be with the emotion instead of letting ourselves get attached in it and letting ourselves become the low, right? Like, because we're not our thoughts, we're not our emotions. We are the thinker of our thoughts and the feeler of our feelings. So just recognizing that there is a second dart allows us to then transcend the first dart and not get too caught up in what is the first dart, if that makes sense. That's something I was just having, so it's kind of top of mind having that with somebody recently.
So, totally makes sense. It actually related a lot into when you were talking about alcoholism and that second drink thing. Like, I have one drink, I must have two.
Yeah.
That kind of internal dialogue. I mean, I've never had that kind of drinking issue, so I don't have first-hand experience. But yeah, it all feels interconnected and interwoven into that. Okay, I must do because I have. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, get it, Upton. Go ahead.
So I have a question about like enlightenment in general, because I mean, a big theme in the book obviously was that, comfort is not bad, but it's, you're not going to live an optimum life if you have comfort. So how do you respond to, because I think a lot of my spiritual journey has been kind of seeking that like enlightenment of just, being Zen and stuff. And, I know like the whole, the end of suffering definition of enlightenment and all of that. So yeah, I guess would you disagree with like Buddhism and that sort of, traditional sense of what enlightenment is, or do you think Fearvana can coexist with that as well?
It's a great question. I think it can kind of coexist, but I don't, while obviously many aspects of Buddhism are in Fearvana, as you've seen or read, and like I ascribe to many of them, I don't personally believe enlightenment is a destination to arrive at. Because if we arrive anywhere, then there's no more growth to be had. Like the only arrival is death. Until then, there can be more growth. So I believe, and I actually wrote about this in my darkness retreat. I had a journal, so I was journaling in the darkness, and I got answers like about the nature of. And I'm not saying my answers are right, because I don't know if there's a right answer, but I got answers that satisfied my curiosity about the nature of God, the nature of enlightenment, the meaning of life, like these very deep existential questions. And what I believe enlightenment is a moment of knowing of the oneness of all that is. It's so true. So like seeing light in the darkness was a moment of enlightenment. But I don't think what happens is we get a moment, an aha, and then magically everything changes. Like I didn't come out of the darkness. I had profound moments within and after, but everything didn't change radically unless I implemented it and consistently practiced it. And so I don't think enlightenment is the end of suffering, because I don't think we want an end of suffering. Like that's my take, is that, because again, like I'll be running ultra marathons till I'm 100 years old, or till my body can't take it anymore, because it's in the next suffering. And the suffering doesn't just have to be physical. And that's the whole point of even like exploring the duality, is suffering can be paradoxically, like for me, I remember I was at a seminar before this whole thing went down, and I would be more comfortable doing 50 burpees than I was like dancing in the seminar room. So my discomfort is going to be very, very different than somebody else's discomfort in that experience, right? So pushing into what, again, I use the word suffering because I think I talk about this in the book, but suffering it feels more challenging than words like difficult or hard or struggle. So if I can suffer well, sort of my key mantra is suffer well. If I can suffer well, then I can do the easier and more difficult thing easily, right? Because it feels, and words have a lot of power. We all know that words have power. Words we use, it can shape our experience of life. So I like to say form a positive relationship to suffering, because then it feels easier to form a positive relationship to difficult, challenging, hard, or whatever. But I don't think enlightenment is the end of suffering in my take on it. I think it's a knowing of oneness that must be then constantly practiced, attained, taught, and then when us as teachers, I don't know everybody here, but in a way I'm teaching others, right, through whether it be my book, my programs, is to give people the means to go seek themselves. And that's why I say in Fearvana, like you can read the book all like a million times. You can hear me on a podcast, you can read somebody else's book, but you'll never really get it unless you do it in the knowing, you know? So like one example of a friend of mine who read it, loved it. She was like, this is great. But then she went and did the Camino del Walk in Spain, you know, like that 400 kilometer walk. It's like 45 days. And she was not extremely physically fit. So she really struggled. And then she was like, now I know Fearvana. And that now she got it because she tasted it, she felt it, she was in it. And so I think enlightenment is the pursuit of those moments. And that's why the dualities allows you to explore different edges that allows you to find oneness within them. And I think it's a momentary transitory glimpse that leads us to some new awakening that then pushes us further on the path. And the hard part is you got to be careful how far you go into the edge. You know, Nietzsche once said that one must be careful when he fights monsters, because if he stares into the abyss stares back into you. And as someone who explores the darkness literally and metaphorically, like to this day, I want to go back into war zones. And I have to really temper that shit, because that can consume you. So when you play on these edges, the further along you go, you really got to just practice how far you push on the edge to keep balancing on the other side of the duality. And I think enlightenment is that constant journey of oneness in those edges, if that makes sense. My take on it, at least. Eventually, I'm actually thinking about writing a whole book in the darkness retreat, like going into the darkness retreat for a month and just writing. Because the shit that came through, like Fearvana, I feel like I wrote. It's very, so if you look at another duality, practical and mystical, right? That's again, a lot of these names for dualities are terminologies I'm coming up with. You can kind of put your own words to it, but the practical and the mystical. So Fearvana is very research-based. It's practical. I read hundreds of books, like very practical, very backed by science. And then there's the mystical, the things that transcend reason, transcend rationality, transcend what can be explained. And that's another duality that in the time of writing Fearvana, was very focused on the practical. Everything had to be backed by reason. Now I'm delving more into faith, into the mystical, into the things that transcend reason. So what came through in the Darkness Retreat journal was stuff that literally, like, I was crying reading my own words after it because it felt like it came through as opposed to, you know, me writing it. So eventually I'm like going to go spend like a month in the darkness and write a whole book in there.
What's your handwriting like in the darkness there?
It's actually, I got my Darkness journal like right there. Give me a second. I was just reading it because I was shooting some videos. I'll show it to you. Here, give me a second.
After that, Neil, you can pop in and get it. Yeah. I'm wondering in my head, I'm like, whenever I write in the darkness or with my eyes closed, forget it. My handwriting's
I can't
bad
read my
to start.
handwriting in daylight.
I have terrible handwriting. Believe me, I get it. But so obviously it wasn't in the lines, but it was like, you know, legible. So I would just have like a ruler and then move it down. Only one time on one day did I actually write over myself. Somewhere in here, I wrote over myself. And then I still remember the darkness. I was like, I think I wrote, I'm just going to move 2 pages forward because I don't want to come out of the darkness and everything be messed up so it's actually fairly legible. Yeah. So this is my Darkness journal. It was very cool to reread the stuff that came through.
Yeah,
Can I ask, was
that's
that
awesome.
an organized retreat or did you organize that yourself?
An organized retreat. It was in Germany where I did it. Eventually I am planning on creating Fearvana retreats. So one of where the Fearvana empire, the vision is growing. One of the things will be Fearvana retreats, and I want to have 3 different levels because not everybody's necessarily going to be ready to go into certain spaces. But one of those I want to do is because I think the darkness is one of the most profound teachers. And the lady who runs the retreat, she's done like every spiritual thing you could think of, like gone into silent retreats, worked with this, that, and the other gurus and ashrams, 10 years in India, like all kinds of stuff. And she said nothing accelerated her spiritual evolution like the darkness, because the value in it is that like if you're learning something from, let's say, me or Di, or you go to a 20 Robbins seminar, any seminar, you're learning a methodology that's being guided by somebody else. Now, right, wrong, good, bad is irrelevant. You're learning an external methodology. In the darkness, there is no methodology. The darkness is its own teacher. So, and unlike, let's say, a silent retreat, I don't know if y'all are familiar with like Vipassanas, those are much more popular. And that's what I was going to do. I didn't know darkness retreats existed, but I stumbled into it. And then I was like, obviously I'm the person who looks the most extreme edges. So I went and decided to go to darkness instead of silence. But unlike silence, in the darkness, you have nowhere external to go. So in a silent retreat, you can still, your eyes are still open. So consciousness can attach externally, like as something simple, like that's a wall. Now my consciousness has somewhere beyond myself to go. In the darkness, you have nowhere to go but yourself. And that's a daunting but beautiful journey.
Awesome. Go ahead, Neil. What do you got?
One part of the book that blew my mind, it was like watching the film Inception, was when you were talking about how memories are flawed, and every time we recall a memory, we're recalling it from the last time we're looking at it, we're recalling it from the last time we've looked at it, and in that mindset we were in. And I just found that extremely powerful, that, you know, I have a say on how I view the past, that I don't have to say everything was great, but that I can take the meaning I want out of it. Because for myself, I played rugby at a professional level, and I had an injury and operations weren't done correctly, and that stopped me from getting back. And I noticed, depending on how I'm feeling, it can either look at it as it was a great achievement, I got to do my passion, which I decided on at a late age, or I can go, oh, somebody else took it away from me. And it's something that I've done a good bit of work on, but it definitely, depending on how I wake up, if I'm thinking about it, I can go one way or the other. So it's very powerful that, you know, I decide each day when I'm looking back at my past how it is, and using that as credit to move forward. And at the moment I'm in Bali because I want to take a break to figure out what is my passion and what I want to do next. And about 6 weeks ago, I came across it, and a lot of fear set in. And it's kind of, this book was great timing for me. And one part, I know what I want to do next. I'll be really good at it, and I'm doing it for the right reason. So I'm excited. Myself and my wife also plan to have kids in the next 2 years. One part I'm struggling with is that you said in the book, greatness demands obsession, not balance. And I'm trying to figure out how can I be a good father and present and available,
and also alive for myself, and I know it, and doing what I want and really committed to it. And that's one thing I'm kind of struggling with. I go, I want to commit all, and I'll live a fulfilled life, and I'll be good around the kids for that. But if I commit too much, I won't be around. And I don't know. I just kind of, that's one thing that's maybe holding me back. That yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts or insight on it.
Got you. Yeah, no, great question. And so when I look at balance, I look at it a little differently than like the traditional maybe perspective on, like, let's say work-life balance, right? And like mine, for me, balance is more on the sort of the edge of those different dualities. But in the context of what you're saying, like when we say obsession, so there's a lot of people who are the masters at their craft who still have family lives, right? Like if you look at the Kobe Bryants of the world, who, you know, he was the best in the world at what he does, and he still had a family. And if you, like, I've really studied him, like he'd come back from a game and still go to his daughter's game to be there for his daughter and stuff like that, right? So the way I approach it for myself now, I still do eventually want to get wife and kids and stuff like that myself. So how I currently view it is, when you get really clear on what a big picture view of your life stands for. So I talked about a philosophy statement. So one thing I have is a philosophy statement, a mission statement, a vision statement, my values. And so I'm clear at the big picture level what I stand for. And then that can translate into every area of my life. So I might have the different aspects, the different vehicles, right? Like, okay, my family life, and then my work life, so for me right now, without a family, it's my training and my business. But they both are kind of in similar buckets, and they both apply by a universal philosophy. So I talk about my work in my playtime, like when I'm hanging out with my parents. When I was married, my work was always brought up with my wife, but it wasn't a bad thing. I don't think that's a bad thing if you love her, right? Like it was all coexisted as one. So I guess the point in that on a simple level, it's like just managing time. And there's a lot that's more, I think, the sort of the simpler stuff on like structuring how you chunk your time and chunk your days to focus on, let's say, kids versus the mastery at your craft. But I think the harder thing and the more valuable thing is the spiritual level. And I think getting it crystal clear on what is your mission, what is your philosophy, what do you stand for? Like companies have it, but not just a mission, a vision, but like a philosophy statement, because then that can guide not just how you raise your kids, but it guides your work, and it translates into all areas of your life. So you are still obsessed at your path. I'm still obsessed on that path. Like I literally have a note card that says, and I read it every morning when I wake up, it's written on a card that says, today you go to war for all humanity. So I use words like war all the time. It's in my philosophy statement. Not everybody resonates with that, and that's okay. It doesn't have to sit with everybody, but it's like I wake up and I read a note card that says, today you go to war for all humanity. There is no tomorrow. Earn this day, So it's like I have a sign up on my living room that says, you will die soon. And it's a picture of the tombstone, like the tombstone that my friend who I lost in the war. So like my world is surrounded with that stuff that keeps me reminded on my vision, and then I can just apply it in different contexts depending on how I need it. Does that make sense? So I would invite you to get really clear on like, what is your philosophy? What do you stand for? What are your values? What is your mission? What is your vision? And then bombard yourself with that. So like, because you might forget, shit's going to come up. You're going to get scared. You're going to go through some low moments, as we all do in life. And when that happens, you bring it back. This is what I stand for. This is why I'm in the fight. And just, you're pummeling your like conscious and your subconscious with it over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, that does make sense. Thanks a lot. One thing that came to me as you were talking, do you ever feel the need to switch off from your obsession and just take complete you time where you don't think about anything work career related?
Yeah.
Or do you don't have the need to do that?
I think so. When I do it, I still view it as pursuing my obsession, because just like so on a simple level, working out, you stress your muscles, you got to recover the muscles. So if you're stressing the spirit and the mind, you need to recover the spirit and the mind. Like it takes energy. If I'm focusing, let's say, copywriting all day, that's a cognitive fatigue that happens. So if I'm taking a shut off time, it's in service of the mission, if that makes sense. It's part of balancing the stress and recovery duality. And you need to, nobody, like, the greatest thinkers, the greatest minds on earth, they recover from, if you look at the best athletes, they don't just train like beasts, they recover like beasts. Their commitment to recovery is absurd. And you play rugby, so you probably know how much you have to commit to the recovery and not just the training. And apply that to not just physical, everything.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
this is sort of like an observation more to everybody. And I'm, this idea of our past, but also, I mean, while I was reading it, I kept finding myself having to stop listening, right? And start reflecting on moments of fear in my life. Like just trying to think about some of those types of fears and how it showed up in my own life and how I dealt with it. But then thinking, like, if I find myself in that situation again, how would I deal with it then? And just, how the mind just starts to play out situations. But I found myself reflecting on some pretty, just fearful moments from my life, or even right from adolescent through. And I thought, man, I really wish I had some of these tools back then, right? Sort of even that perspective on fear. And I'm just curious, anybody else have similar reactions, like just reflecting and replaying those fearful moments from your life? I don't know. Anyways, I just thought it was great, actually. And I've got two teens, 15 and 17. I'm like, they're gonna be reading this book, because I'm like, gosh, if I had that kind of a framework, or at least the faculties to be able to work through fear, man, it's great. It was just a great resource. So I don't know if anybody has any stories or anything else that you want to throw in there, but my goodness, it's great.
Actually, one quick note about that, especially for many of y'all who, I don't know how many of y'all are parents, but yeah, the earlier you start, I love the work. I was actually mentoring these young athletes, 13 to 15-year-old athletes. And dude, I look at like what they were taking in. I mean, I was a dumbass at 15 years old. Y'all saw my story, like on how I was an idiot. And I look at these kids and I'm like, Jesus, the depth of awareness. I'm mentoring this one 15-year-old kid who's racing in NASCAR too. And like depth of awareness. So the younger we can kind of get him into this stuff and they can have that, build these before we get caught up in the negative patterns and then it's harder to rewire the brain than it is to start building the right way, So it's awesome that you're all doing that with kids. I love mentoring younger kids, man. It warms my heart. So I'm just glad this is making a difference, man.
At this time, guys, I think like if somebody has one more thing that they want to bring up, let's do that now. And then we'll kind of like do some takeaways at 10 of. So does anybody want to bring something up?
I have one more quick question, if that's okay. I really appreciate you talking about how you wrote the book, and then the sobriety in your marriage was such a foundational part of the book, and then went through a divorce and slipped up with the sobriety. What steps from your own writings, or even outside of your writings, did you use to change your mind frame, or goals did you set to kind of bring yourself back out of that phase?
That's what was the exploration of these dualities. So one thing that came to me in the darkness was I have for a long time wrestled with feeling guilty about feeling happy. And I touch on this in the context of in the book, like losing my friend in war. But it's not just that. Like when I remember day one of running across Liberia, I met this kid who lost his mother in the war, lost his father, living in a village. He wanted to go to med school, but the odds of that happening are damn near zero, that he would end up going to med school ever and become a doctor. And I was running with this kid, chatting with him, thinking, why do I get to, like, why was I born where I was born, to a good family? And I see right now, man, as we sit here, there's so much pain in the world. One of the other groups that we support is survivors of sex trafficking, and you see what these young girls have been through, and it's fucking horrific, man. And it's absolutely horrific. And so the point that I'm making is what had led me to my awareness was struggling for a long time with this guilt of feeling happy because there's too much pain in the world. So why do I get this? And what allowed me to, that's where I've been delving more into the mystical, into faith, is that I don't know the answers to that question. Like even I actually found out, I don't talk about this in the book because I don't think I knew at the time, but I found out after coming back from the war that my vehicle drove over an active IED. And for some reason it didn't explode. My staff sergeant told me like a few years ago, years after the war. I guess I missed that debrief in Iraq, but it's for some reason it didn't explode. And so when I think about all these things, I don't know all those answers to those questions, but I guess delving into the dualities of faith, of the mystical, of surrender. Like I'm a big control freak, man. My world is in my hands, right? So I'm going to seize control, and my destiny is in my hands. But there's value in surrender, just like there is in control. Not one or the other is bad. And so what's allowed me to do it and it's a constant practice. Like I still struggle with the demons. There's shit that still shows up. By no means am I every day I'm smiling or anything like that, But it's reinforcing it through constant practices, and delving into the other edges of what I've struggled with. that have allowed me to now just be like, look, I don't know the answers to those questions, but me being happy is not going to change the fact that there are others in pain. If anything, it's going to help me do the work better to help others in pain. So like recognizing that, those are some of the things that are kind of been helping me. And it like just a constant practice. So one of the other things that I have, I'm a big planner and tracker. I have my little notebook. Oh, it's in there. Anyone can grab it right now. But I plan and track everything, my diet, my meals. And I actually have this little book that I call the Spirit Armory. So it's a little notebook that like yay size that is like, it's like, I call my Spirit Armory to tap into that warrior spirit whenever I need it. And it's filled with tons of things in this little book. It's like a little Moleskine book, you know, yay big. It's got my philosophy in there, my mission, my vision. It's got these it is like me to statements. So I'll quickly run through this and then we can discuss if this is helpful. I learned this from an Olympic gold medal winning athlete, Lanny Basham. He used to have these, he used to say, it is like me. So he was a shooter. So he would say, it is like me to shoot a 10. It is like me to shoot a 10. Because we always are reinforcing a self-identity. So sometimes like in Olympic athletes, he talks about this, they might train like a beast, right? In training, they'll be crushing it, but they get to performance and they'll fail. Why? Because some part of them might feel like they don't deserve it. And I was having the same thing. Like I would be on the cusp of hitting a new edge, but then I'd find a way to sabotage myself because I felt like I don't deserve it. I don't deserve to be happy, right? And so now creating a new self-identity by saying it is like me to. So in my little Spirit Armory, I have these series of it is like me to statements that say it is like me to, and what these statements are is reminding yourself about a way of being that you're not currently embodying. So like for a long time, which I'm now better at. So after I kind of ingrain it, I no longer, I write my stuff in pencil in my Spirit Armory and then I erase it. But like for a long time I had, it is like me to embrace play, love, joy, and happiness. Because that's not what I was doing at all, you know? So I now was embracing that, reminding myself of that, bombarding myself with that until it became more normalized. And then I redo it and put a new it is like me to statement to bombard myself with all the time. So creating a little, why I like this little notebook, it's super small, it fits in my pocket, carry with me everywhere. So like when I was in India last, I would go to the movies with my family. If I'm walking to the movies on the way to the bathroom, I'll pull it out and just read an it is like me to statement real quick. So it's like this little tool. I mean, that's why I call it the Spirit Armory. It's like your armory of weapons you can access at will to keep doing it. And dude, like, I mean, the battle for that growth is relentless. Self-awareness. I mean, you have to be so on point. You know, you lose it. And I mean, again, for me, I say it like it because I see how dark it gets. Like when I broke hard, man. And I broke really hard. And if I don't, and I have to, like, I know that complacency kills. Like in Marines, we used to say that complacency kills. And it does. If you're not, and again, this is not to be like dark or it's not like everything's miserable in life, obviously, but not to be dark about it. But like, if you lose that, you can retreat. As I talk about in the book, right? The brain will retreat to the laziest, easiest course of action. So you kind of constantly have to really keep those practices 24/7. And I'm big into systems, into structures. So systems for everything that I do. And that allows me to use my cognitive and my physical and my spiritual energy when I need it, not for little things in life. That's why I plan and track everything. So like every day, breakfast, lunch, dinner is the same, little things like that, you know, keeping systems to help me not let my demons control me. Sorry, long-winded answer, but hopefully that was helpful.
No, I really appreciate the sharing of that too. That's a big, big part of the evolution of it, in my opinion. So thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, we got about 10 minutes left. So why don't we just like close down and we'll roll through everybody again. You could just let us know, like, I don't know, what your takeaway is or what action step you're going to take. Cause I think there's a lot of actionable stuff that was talked about here. So that might be nice. Eric, why don't we start with you? Hopefully this order stays the same and I'll just roll through what's on my screen here.
Yeah, thank you for showing up tonight. Thanks for the book. I actually was using it as I was reading the book, and I've always struggled with reading, and I realized during the book that it was from a limiting belief that I had, and it'll take me usually a month to finish a book. And I plowed through half the book today, and I put in some natural sounds as kind of an anchor. So that from now on, when I'm listening to that nature sounds, that's my focus anchor. And it just came to me while reading the book. So it's powerful stuff, and I'm really looking forward to implementing more. Thank you.
Max, go ahead.
Yeah, seconding that, really, that's such a cool experience to have you here after reading the book. That's a very awesome and powerful experience there. My takeaway, which stemmed from the book, and I kind of touched on this before, was just that the idea of really thinking about your mindset and how if you can change that mindset and what you just followed up on too, you know, being an active thing, that it's not just one thing that happens once and you can do it. It's an active practice that you really have to put in the work to make it better and to make strides for yourself. Especially with my current situation, it's helped immensely where I am right now, because right now I could definitely just be sitting in my bed, honestly, just lights out, TV on, whatever. And it's like, I've been really surprised how happy I've been through this experience. And I think it's from, you know, working on shifting that mindset of being like, okay, what am I going to learn out of this? What am I going to take away from this? You know, what are the positive things that you can get out of this? So thank you so much for being here, and thank you for the book.
Neil, you're up.
Actually, I know you said one of your fears in the book was, will all this effort be worth it? And only you can answer that, but I've gained so much from the book. So thank you for doing that deep internal dive and putting in all the effort. Yeah, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna embrace fear. I'm gonna look to find fear wherever I can find it and conquer it. So yeah, it's definitely shifted my perspective completely. And on the exercise front, I've kind of been training like an average person, and I've been getting average results. So I'm definitely gonna up that, become more of a warrior like I was in the past, and just got like how that will filter into other aspects of life. I kind of had it as one box, not feeding into the other, but that your book has changed my perspective on that. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've been listening to you on Audible, so it's nice actually seeing the voice come out of your mouth this time around. But one of the biggest takeaways for me with the whole book here is a lot of times in the past when I've gotten scared, when I'm fearful of just sort of like what's going on, I'm very good at getting myself into some great situations, but then I don't know where to take it, and I get scared of that. So I'll hide. I'll kind of put myself into a cocoon and run from things. But this time around, I've gotten myself into some great places. And with this book sort of coming around when there was the vote on it, and I read what, you know, sort of the synopsis of what this book was, it was just like, yeah, that's what I need. And it literally has been. It's been amazing seeing it. And it's allowing me to sort of harness that fear and take it forward and take the next steps to be able to get the structure that I need, and putting it forward. And to talk about the dualities of what you're saying in this one, I can't wait to see what the next book is. I mean, it's amazing, because I've sort of been playing on that side of being the lesser side of me, and I really want to hit that other side, right? So yeah, I'm really looking forward to what comes out, because you've got some really cool stuff to say. So thank you very much.
Upton, go ahead.
I just wanted to, kind of echo everyone, but also just really thank you for writing this book, because I especially, you know, I read a lot, but as a journalist, I especially appreciated all the you know, the data and citing so many just incredible studies. And I know that definitely takes a long time. I think it would have been, you know, probably taking you a third of the time to just kind of write what you know, but you just backed it up with so much just brilliant studies and research. And I just truly resonated with that and appreciated the extra effort and time that must have taken. And then thank you for your time tonight. I took a ton of notes, and the philosophy statement and vision statement is just brilliant, because it's something I kind of like hear about and learn, you know, every 2 years, but then I just realized I haven't been operating with a vision statement or philosophy statement for the past couple of years. And, you know, just to write one, you know, even real quick, will kind of help guide me throughout, you know, my decision making of, should I work on this or that, or should I watch Netflix or do work, or, you know, just waking up, having that purpose. It's such a good reminder. So thank you.
Ray?
Hey, yeah, it's been a great call. I've got like a full page of notes of nuggets that are things I haven't even found in the book yet, and also writing down things that I have actually read through already or listened through already on the book too. But I wrote down two things. The first one was the philosophy statements, just that today you go to war for all humanity. I love that, just that owning, okay, this is my position in the world. This is my philosophy statements, and I feel like I definitely need to figure out what that line means for me. And then the other one, which resonated with me really, really hard, and I wrote it down, and I feel like I say this internally all the time, is it is like me too. And I think I say that very often, but for me, it is like me to not get done. It is like me to be tired. It is like me to do a lot of things. And maybe I need to actually actively say, it is like me too for the active things. So the positive things, the like you say, opt for the empowering meaning for the LMNOP thing. So that's the big takeaway. I'm looking forward to finishing this book and listening through to it a couple more times, I think.
Kaveh, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, wanted to thanks everyone based on what you guys shared, and also a special thanks to Akshay, because definitely for me that I didn't have a chance to read the book, but while I'm hearing everyone's experience, I had a chance to search more about the book, and of course yourself, Akshay. So I wanted to share this. So inspiring to see how much effort you put to turn kind of like those experiences to something meaningful, and then kind of, you know, leading others and let light to others people's life. So my biggest takeaway is, you know, every single things that so far everyone shared, but in a point that now I'm way more motivated to go get the book and read it, especially when, you know, we have him in this call. It's more kind of inspiring. And then again, thank you for everything you've been doing. And it's so great to be here with you, everyone. And thanks again for having this space from Dai and everyone else. Thanks.
Stefan, do you wanna pop in and share with us anything you got? I don't know if I know you slipped in there at the end.
He might just be listening. He might be somewhere where he can't chat.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry, guys.
Oh, there
Sorry,
he is.
guys.
There he is.
Yeah, I was mostly just listening in because unfortunately I haven't made it to read the book yet. I listened to the podcast and I found that really interesting, and I will definitely follow up with it and read the book. I think there are some, you know, there are very, very powerful messages in there. I've also, followed some other people who did ultra running and had these like extreme experiences. So I find that always very interesting, how that can be also connected to a mind journey in a way, right? In some sorts, to go to your boundaries, and then kind of like also your boundaries in life, emotional boundaries and whatnot, by having these extreme experiences. I find that super interesting. And to almost kind of have the chance to relive a little bit of that, right? Like, or like, you know, if you don't do ultra running yourself, but like to learn also about that is very inspiring from my point of view. Yeah, but like I said, I didn't read the book, so I can't really, you know, can't contribute like with in-depth things about that. But I think it's amazing that I think Dai, I guess you enabled that to bring Akshay to this call. No, you didn't. Oh, sorry.
All Michael.
Okay, sorry then. Thanks, Michael. I think that's awesome, and also like an honor to have that opportunity, right? To listen to the author of such a great book.
Thanks, Stefan. Appreciate it. Di, go ahead. And if you want, when you're finished, maybe you want to take a picture. I know that's like you, so you can hook that up.
You know me. I want to take a picture. Doesn't end up on Instagram. Probably never happened. No. All right. Well, first of all, I just want to say, you know, it was really insightful just hearing everybody else's perspectives, but also the takeaways. And I know for myself, it really resonated hearing it again, because, you know, it's funny, we embrace this, as you said, what is it, suffer well, right? We embrace this suffering to certain levels, and then I find myself easing off. And so I feel reinvigorated to learn to embrace the suck a little bit more again. It's been a while. And that's why I just wanted to close on this is the philosophy statement, mission statement, vision statement, and also the revisiting of my core values and what I prioritize in my life. I think about it, it's been a long time since I've done an exercise like that. And yeah, I like a lot of you guys. I think this would be actually pretty good for from an accountability perspective. I know a lot of us had mentioned that was something that we want to get into or take some time to actually do. I'm just going to put it out there that I'm looking forward to sharing on one of our future Mentorship Monday calls. And I hope to see the conversation continue. And so thank you, Akshay, for being here and for sharing your insights, your experiences. And I feel like it was just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more to go that we could have gone down. But man, it was just awesome. And Michael, thank you for making this happen. I remember when you first read this book, I was still living in Bali at the time. And I remember you coming to Mentorship Monday one night and being like, man, I read this book and this guy did this, because I had just done a Vipassana, and I remember you telling we were talking about Vipassanas, and then Michael, you mentioned about this dark retreat, and I was like, that just sounds crazy to me. And now to have met the person that actually did it, well, yeah, you got to be a very particular type of person. So it's you've inspired me. Now I find myself thinking about that. Next thing you know, I'm going to be locking myself in a deep dark closet and just taking a bottle of water with me. But anyways, thank you for your time and for your knowledge and wisdom tonight. It was just amazing. And thank you, Michael, for facilitating. And I'll turn it over to Michael and Akshay, if you have anything else you'd like to say as well, please do.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, thank you, like everyone else. And, what you've given me over the past couple of months or however long we've been talking is a great example for what a leader looks like in the civilian world, like coming from the military community and translating that into skills that are useful for normal people and in the real world where there's no black and white. So, I just want to thank you for that, because there are some examples, but to have like a personal connection with you and see you doing it actively it's huge for me. So thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you all so much for having me. Really, I so appreciate the kind words. I so appreciate the journey each of you are all on. I know that path of just constant growth is it's not an easy path, and to choose to walk it is a beautiful thing. So I honor you all. I'm grateful for you two all for having me here, and really thank you so much. It makes a really big difference for me in my life being here in these kind of these settings as well. So I really appreciate all of you. And thank you, Michael, for setting this up. Thank you, Di, for having me as well. And I'm looking forward to connecting further with you, Di. Later. Yeah.
I can't wait, man. It'll be great. And well, like we mentioned, we're gonna have the photo now, guys. So get your hair ready, get the band ready there, Upton. Come on, get it there. Good. Everybody looking good. Alex, that trim beard, I just don't recognize you, man. I'm like, geez, it's even playoffs now too. And forget COVID. Anyways, okay, everybody ready? I'll count down. 3, 2. Awesome. Oh, I love it. Great shot, guys. And actually, I'll send you that as well. I'll send you a copy of that so you have it. And just a reminder, I've got the recording, which I'll share the link in the WhatsApp feed, as well as the Facebook group. And actually, if you like, I'll send you a copy of it as well, just so you have it for your own files, in case you want to do anything with it. You got my green light on that. I think everybody else here is fine with that too. So yeah, with that, any other remarks? Anybody else have anything else to say? Well, I'll just say it one more time. Actually, thank you so much for not only living your life, but being willing to share it and share your insights that you've learned along the way. I think you've got loyal readers right within this community for sure. So we're already looking forward to your second book. That's the message I think you probably took away from us as well tonight. That's a question we're all asking. When's it coming? So we'll definitely have to have you back again sometime soon. And Michael, thank you so much for organizing this, but also for facilitating and hosting tonight. It was love your energy and just appreciate you always showing up, man. It's awesome. So with that, guys, everyone have a great evening or morning, I guess, for you Bali guys. Don't rub it in. And Akshay, again, thank you a lot for coming.
Thank you all. Much love.
Cool.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
See you all later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Bye.